What's up, beautiful people? Welcome
guys.
back to the What's Up, Beautiful People podcast. This is like our 10th episode, I think, today.
Yeah.
And we have maybe the greatest guest that we've ever had on the podcast.
Really exciting.
Don't tell that to our previous guests.
We love all of our
We
guests
love all
so
of our
much.
guests. But this
one's
guy
special.
in particular has had a huge part in our story, a huge part in just sort of our motto, I guess, of keep your yes on the table and where grace guides will go, and just saying yes to the crazy stuff that God calls us to do. And he is what Amanda referred to earlier today as we were talking about this, getting ready for this. What did you say he was?
The most interesting man in the world. You know those Dos Equis commercials?
Yeah.
It's like the guy that's like done everything. He knows a little bit about everything. I'm like, this is like really mind-blowing in some ways, because I feel like you have done so much. It's just every time I hear another story, I'm like, wow, like what has this guy not done?
He's an honorary consul of a foreign nation. He is a very decorated lawyer. He's written several books. If you guys don't already know who I'm talking about, we have Bob Goff himself, the man, the myth, the legend, on the podcast today. Welcome to the podcast, Bob.
Well, that is a buildup. I was just thinking about a decorated lawyer. Like, what would you have? You'd have duct tape over the mouth and some tinsel, maybe. Yeah, kind of like one of those Charlie Brown Christmas trees. But yeah, I'm just so delighted to be with you guys. I love tracking with what you guys are doing, and I think that one of the things for not only listeners that would dive in, but you guys, is just curiosity, to just be curious about everything. And then not everything will connect to everything. It doesn't have to be this great big, let's rebuild the Aswan Dam. Just give somebody who's thirsty a cup of water.
Yeah.
that's where it gets really practical, not going across an ocean, but going across the street.
Yeah.
You'll find that everywhere for those that are listening, where faith guides their steps. Like, that'll resonate with you.
Love that, man.
I've talked to a lot of people that want to go to the ends of the earth, but they actually don't know the person that lives just at the end of their street.
Yeah.
No guilt or shame in that. Just be like, just go down.
Yeah.
Lie. Say you need a cup of sugar.
Isn't it a wild thing? Like, I grew up and that was a regular practice for my family. Like, can you go next door and borrow a cup of sugar, borrow a cup of milk, borrow an egg, borrow some butter? And like, we just don't really do that anymore. It's such a wild thing. Yeah.
There's something about part of it is just knowing your neighbors. Like,
Yeah.
I think 100 years ago, everybody would like kind of knew who was in the farm next door. But here there's an autonomy that we have, and I totally get that. Me too. However, it's just good to figure out some way to get them together. So what we'd started, it was 26 years ago, because I'm older, was a parade. We started 26 years ago. It was just me and Sweet Marie and our little kids. And we walked from the cul-de-sac to our front door, which was 8 houses on our street.
Amazing.
But then the next year, we had a couple more people and a couple more people. And the only rule in the parade is everybody has to be in it and nobody can watch.
I love it.
Yeah. So now I think the last time we did it, there were 800 people. So by the time everybody lines up, we're at our house. So everybody just takes one step and then like, woo.
I love it.
Yeah.
Short and
So,
sweet.
but that idea is that everybody gets out and meets each other. And
That's so
there's
fun.
something beautiful about that. One time a police officer came and asked if we had a permit, and we said, well, no, but will you be the grand marshal?
I love it. I
always get the fire truck comes down. I tell them, either way you're going to be here. Like, don't make me do a felony like 911.
It's so fun.
But there's something beautiful. Everybody just kind of makes time.
That's cool. That's awesome. We did a similar thing a couple years ago. We sort of organized a huge group of people to just go Christmas caroling. Like, I love Christmas and I love to sing, and so we just got the neighborhood together and went door to. It's sort of like, reverse trick or treating. Like, you're giving. We baked a bunch of cookies, sang a Christmas song, gave them some cookies. It wasn't for really anything. It was just because, we wanted to meet our neighbors, and, it was kind of fun. So we became known as the singing, Christmas Carol family or whatever. But, we have 7 kids, so we have a parade on our own already. So
what'll happen when you just give this one touch, this is this one interaction they had with you, and have the whole universe of their experience with you. And they go like, oh, it's that family. So somebody's listening, don't just agree and think, wow, what a swell idea. Just say, hey, what can I do?
What's our thing? Yeah.
Just wrap up a present, make a pecan pie. If your neighbor doesn't want it, I do.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So how do you go from being a lawyer to now? I mean, obviously there had to be some transition years. There had to be some sort of like aha moment or calling moment, or you're presented with an opportunity that you're like, what do we do? Like, what did that look like for you? Because I mean, we're coming up on, I saw you posted 20 years of Love Does, which that's amazing.
Credit to all the people that are in these different countries that are doing the courageous work. I'm just thinking about right now, as you mentioned, that we've got teachers who took 1 week off when the Taliban took over in Afghanistan, but they went right back. And we've got a couple hundred little girls in classrooms and chairs in a place that is hostile to that. The people in leadership were contacted and they said we could do it. And so that idea of trying maybe for everybody to say, I don't want to make a headline, I want to make a difference. And I think at the core, that's what everybody wants, but we don't know what to do. And we just think there's somebody else sitting at the cool kids table or something, and say, like, what if we just get engaged with the things that are around us? The person next door who lost a loved one, the mailman who our mailman's, he's just not a detail guy. He just delivers the mail to everybody. But as a result of that, all the neighbors know each other.
Yeah.
In the middle of the street and just hand everybody mail to the right person.
That's awesome.
But to find those things and then just stay curious. I'm just looking at right here. Like I've got a book right here. I took Everybody Always, one of these books, and translated it into Korean. And we're sending it to Kim Jong-un. That's amazing. Isn't hard to get. And it'll I'll have a letter and it'll just say, do you want to meet? And I think the chances are pretty low, but like kind of like Dumb and Dumber,
but you never know. Yeah.
Saying I have a chance. No, but like that idea of just say, instead of watching it unfold on the news, why don't we participate? And find a thing, a little bit of whimsy and but I'm not saying you need to go do something big, and I'll promise you this, you will not see any selfies if he were to say yes. Quietly, go do something. Go find something you can do, something in your community, something where you have an opportunity, and do something about it. I was sitting on our back porch here. We're down by the water in San Diego, and these people were walking down the path, and they just looked exceptionally sad. And I just pick up the like tells, and their head was low and their shoulders are down. So I went out and I'm like, I'm not trying to interfere, but it just looks, you guys look bummed. Like, are you guys okay? And they said, we're actually emergency room doctors. This was in the middle of COVID, and they were just totally worn out for understandable reasons. But they said, we're supposed to get married today. And so the church canceled, the reception canceled. And I pointed out at the end of the doc, I said, I got a boat and I got a piece of paper that says I can do it. Let's marry you. And they had the coolest, cheapest wedding ever.
I love it.
Their family members like kind of line up on the shore, and it was just really cute.
That's
Everybody
amazing.
was 6 feet apart and cheering. So just get your head on a swivel. Think about how you could take a genuine interest in other people. Paul talking about a friend of his, Timothy, and he said that was the outstanding characteristic Timothy had. He was a guy who took a genuine interest. So like literally track with the Miller family, see what you guys are up to. Take an interest. If there's a way to intersect with the many things you're doing, jump on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something that you and I have a lot in common, and I actually write about it. I've got a copy of this little book right here, The Art of Getting It Wrong. It's actually 3 months old today, so I'm pretty pumped about that. But there is
I like your reference to a dopamine hit. I was like, what a great reference. Like, I didn't know as much about prefrontal cortex and amygdalas and what chemicals were going off, but this is very instructive for an Enneagram 7.
Well, this is where I'm headed with it. So because that's what we have in common, is that we're both Enneagram 7. And I talk about it a little bit. You're a guy you've got doing your fundraiser. You talk about him a lot. Ryan O'Neill from Sleeping at Last. He wrote that Enneagram 7 song, and I listened to the podcast. You were on the song.
Yeah.
Which is so cool.
Was I squeezing a balloon or
it was something like super random, and I was like, "That's incredible."
Easter eggs planted into the songs. That was cute.
But I love, the chapter "Watch Your Blind Spots." It talks about me being an Enneagram 7 and just sort of the, propensity that I have sometimes to be looking at the future and what's next and what are we going to do and how are we going to maybe not necessarily know how to be present sometimes, you know what I mean? And I love the lyric, he's, I'm ready, I'm restless, and I'm hungry. I'm ready for whatever comes next, is, that song. And I'm just curious because, for me, that's been a really big learning journey, is learning to be here, know that I can't really control tomorrow, but I can't really get anything done tomorrow either. I can only get anything done right now. How do I dream big, but also be present and undistracted? You just released a book called Undistracted. It's a phenomenal book. I'm the guy who literally was listening to Undistracted. I think I told you this before. I was putting it on Audible to try to listen to it, and I'm getting a drink from Starbucks. And as I'm listening to Undistracted, I get in the wrong car in the parking because I was so distracted trying to listen to Undistracted. It's the greatest thing. So, I think something that has helped me over the years is being married to Amanda, because she really does help me to remember that I have enough, that, the things that I need to hear that shape me, and I'd be curious, you're a couple years ahead of me on some of this. And, what does that process look like for you to be this huge dreamer who does so much and who has accomplished so many things and impacted so many people, and yet you're married to Sweet Marie, and you have 3 kids, and how do you balance that? What have been your biggest things, takeaway for your marriage, for your family, for your just life in general, being who you are?
Yeah, among the things that come to mind are there's a prayer that Jesus had. He was kind of talking to his dad, and he said that his prayer is that we, like all of us, would be one. And I'm learning in marriage, 35 years, 3 weeks, 4 days. I'm counting up. I think she's counting down. The oneness doesn't mean sameness. So that's a great, to hover over that for a second, to say we're not supposed to be the same, that we could be one. So I just got back from Texas, and Marie and I didn't talk about where I was. We talked about how I was. So if you talk about where, then you'll end up having that kind of relationship. If you talk about how you are, then it's helpful. And if you need a prompt, I wear, I'm holding this up to you, I wear a mood ring. And so, so it's green with a little blue right now. And so she'll just say, so what color is your ring? And so we
like that.
Talking about where I am, it makes us feel far apart, because I could be in Kabul or Mogadishu. But if I'm how I am, that makes us feel really close together. So it's I would call it isn't just whimsy, it's a strategic whimsy.
There you go.
So it's this planned spontaneity. I'm looking at a whiteboard here in this room that I'm sitting in, and I got 23 things that I'm doing. So some of those have some parts, because Love Does is one of the 23, and they're up to a number of different things. So there's some pieces underneath that. But these are the ones, and I kind of scan it to just say where I'm at, which one needs a little nudge, which needs a little attention. And then I try to bring people along with me to say, hey, is that shimmer to you? Is that something you want to do? Because I really want people to do what they want. So we just hired somebody to help out, and they said, well, so what's the job? And the answer is I don't know. What are you good at?
I love it.
The corollary, what do you not suck at? So what we want people to do is things that they're good at. And so we just kind of moving it around to find something, and somebody just kind of claims dibs on something, not because I told them this is what you're doing, but to say, I don't know, does that shimmer to you?
I love it.
It does. So you can be both winsome and super high functioning. So sometimes the miscue is that somebody that's full of adventure and ideas and all that, that they wouldn't have underneath that veneer, which is an authentic veneer, a mile of strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, this isn't just going to be, I happen to mail it. I happen to mail the same thing to Putin, and I happen to mail the same thing to, like, you pick the leader that's in a civil war, like that would be strategic. And it's just me having called somebody to translate it into that language 6 months ago, and they just popped out. So I would say to just know why you're doing what you're doing is a great vetting. Because if you're doing it because you just have a bunch of energy, we don't need a bunch of like Red Bulled out, over caffeinated people. We got a lot of those. But to have really intentional people that know why they're saying, I'm not just saying, will it work? The vetting is, will this last?
There you go.
Will this matter? Does this have shelf life? And loving people always lasts. It just does. And starting with the person across the street, the thing that won't make any headlines and you wouldn't want to make a headline anyway, because you just screw it up.
That's good, man.
So good.
I love that.
Yeah. It's just really encouraging, because I think that's a big conversation that we have been having, especially in this more recent season, is how to slow down and be more intentional in what we're doing, and the people around us, whether that's our children or our neighbors, like just really wanting to be more intentional about what we're doing, because it can be so easy to get caught up in life and feel like life is happening to you instead of, being able to go out there and make intentional choices on how to love people and how to love God and how to do life in a way that you feel like you are accomplishing something, not because you're able to make this big headline, but because you feel like you're chasing after what God has designed you to do,
Yeah. And you can surround yourself with either prompts or reminders, a mood ring. I wear a Mickey Mouse watch.
I love that.
If you ever walked into a room and nobody's smiling, I'm like, me and you, buddy.
I love that.
Oh, here's another super practical thing. I drive a 1971 Volkswagen Bug. And it's not like an awesome one. It's just, it just goes slow. It does not have hurry in it. And it's not driving it because it's a classic. I just drive it because it's a cheap car that'll get me there, and you can replace the engine for $400. And I just liked it. That was my first car, was a 71. I'm amazing that old. And then, so what I want us to do is, you can slow down the cadence in your life by just trading in your wheels. Like, instead of being so in a hurry. One thing I quit, I went kind of straight on, was not making appointments. So that was a super helpful pivot for me. Instead of saying, when somebody says, you want to have coffee, then they'd say, like, how about 3? And then how about here? How about there? How about 4? How about 1? Blah, blah, blah. So what I do is I tell people where I'm going to be. And then like Tom Sawyer Island, Wednesday, 10 to 3. And so if they want to come by there, they're terrific. If they don't, then terrific. And so tell people the arc. What if you are listening and think, I could just do away with appointments? Can you imagine a lawyer that doesn't make appointments?
Chaos.
So just be a little unconventional. And people will think of that as being eccentric, but it's actually being strategic.
Well, it forces people to honor your time too, in that regard. Like, because sometimes I think someone like me, like, I really get excited about hanging out with people and all that, and I can book up my time, like, maybe too much, like back-to-back meetings or whatever, and I don't build enough margin in, for me to rest, for me to even process the last meeting before I'm going into the next meeting or whatever, and then I'm not really fully present in the meeting that I'm in, and maybe I'm late, which isn't honoring their time. There's just so much to that. I think there's something cool about you inviting people into what you're doing. That's pretty cool.
A real practical way to stay like this high value of availability is I just put my cell phone number in the back of quite a few books. And so I get, I don't know, 100 calls a day. I've gotten 3 while we've been talking.
That's so crazy.
And I don't feel bad for not taking these calls, because we're talking and it would be disrupting what we're doing.
Right.
But like, just that idea to live your life with just constantly being interrupted,
I
Now,
love
for some people, I'm married to one, that would not be a good idea.
it.
However, maybe for you, you'd say, actually, those kind of interruptions are beautiful. I always just like answer the phone with a ton of anticipation that maybe there's a way to be helpful, or that somebody's got a quick question or just wanted to say something that mattered to them. Yeah. And so there's a way to like kind of land the plane in a minute or two, to just say, hey, I don't have as much time as I wish I had, but like, here's my email address, like Bob Goff at Bob Goff. See what I did there? So just make it super easy. And then I remember that singer, oh gosh, it was 25, 30 years ago, Keith Green, that died way too young. And he wrote me 3 sentences before there was the internet in a letter. I wrote to him, he wrote me 3 sentences. And I felt like such a boss, because Keith Green had wrote to me 3 sentences, and I ain't Keith Green, but everybody that writes to me, a couple hundred a day, get 3 sentences, and it's not the same 3 sentences. But that for me is a great way to kind of put into practice what I'm saying is a high value. So you could say, loving people's a high value, but if your life is scheduled so they never note it, you don't want to keep that the best kept secret.
Well, and you do a great job at that. I mean, you're actually practicing what you preach. For case in point, 2016, Amanda and I were on our anniversary trip to Jamaica, and I bought this little book called Love Does, and I was just sitting on the beach reading Love Does, and sure enough, see your phone number in the back of the book. And being the guy who's like, maybe he'll answer,
Oh, so you called? How fun is that?
Well, I didn't call. I texted you.
I don't get text messages.
Well, actually, what I tweeted at you on Twitter.
Oh, okay. I'll get those. Yeah.
And you responded. You followed me back and responded. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this book, because we were literally in the process at that point of praying through, we had 5 kids at the time, and we were talking about adopting from China at that point. And we were looking at kind of older, special needs. Ended up, as a big part of those conversations that came from us reading Love Does on our anniversary vacation trip to Jamaica, is that we started the process to adopt Penelope and Lincoln, our 2 kiddos from China. And so, I mean, just there's all these little tie-ins, even just with the book, The Art of Getting It Wrong. We were reading Dream Big. And I was like, I think it's time to like write another book, and because I had it in me for a while, and so anyway, you've made a huge impact in our life.
Like for people listening, to just live a noteworthy life, not like I invented medicine or fire or one of the elements, but instead that you're just taking notes on your life. Somewhere I was reading or heard or something that the Mona Lisa does not have eyebrows. And that just blew my mind.
That's so weird. Okay, I need to see this. This is actually, I'm going to Google right now.
Yeah, that they put it, under the magnifying glass to see, like, what's the deal? She used to have eyebrows, but can you just picture the Frenchman cleaning it? And then the left eyebrow went away. So he's like evening it up. Yeah. So she used to have eyebrows, probably big old caterpillar ones. And they just
oh my gosh,
too hard. And they went away.
Oh no way.
So what does that have to do with anything in your life? It doesn't matter. I would write down the Mona Lisa has no eyebrows.
Oh my God.
Or the phone number for the White House. I don't care who's buying it at the time. Just write it down. 202-456-1414. It's always been the number. It always will be the number. And I like that idea to be just engaged, and then to say to your kids or your loved ones or the ones around us, like, let's contact some people that are having a rough go at things. And like just go to their, like, if the 2 of you went with all your kids to Washington, D.C., you could make in 8 hours 8 appointments at 8 embassies. And then whenever you heard of that country, you'd go like, oh, I know the ambassador. And it's not like
amazing.
A practical joke. It's just like you'll actually get to know these guys. You'll end up loving the countries more, because you'll have a touch point with them. And that kind of strategic whimsy, I think, goes a really long way.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's so cool.
So how has, for you, because obviously we're a huge family, and a lot of our kids are becoming adults. Like our oldest is 18. She moved out, moved to Florida, moved back home, which is great for us. But, we're sort of making that transition right now from having like young kids and, you do the 10-year birthday trip. You talk about in your book, we do a 13-year birthday trip with our kiddos, and just spending as much time as you can, like making those memories and making that kind of young child impact on our kids. And now as they're switching over to being adults and older teenagers and stuff like that, I'm curious, like, I think you have some of your kids that work with you, right?
Oh yeah.
On
All
your
the
team?
kids live within about 5 minutes of our house.
That's amazing.
And one of them runs this retreat center we have. And he does a bunch of other stuff, but that's among the things that he does.
I love it.
It's just so, it's been neat to just collect experiences that you share together.
Yeah.
And then like our kids are 30, 32, and 34 now.
Wow.
And we made them, and then they married some people. So then that was 3 turned into 6. And then they made some people. So 6 turned into 9. And so Marie and I, so I'm the pastor of a church of 11.
I love it.
So what I want to do is to say, what if we actually work this thing? We've got this family. Everybody's getting older. We have some new additions to the family. Let's bring somebody in. We've arranged for a friend of ours who knows a lot about the Enneagram to come in and do an overnight. And we're just going to talk about how wildly, wonderfully different we all are and stay ahead of it instead of finding the rip and then looking for a repair. And to say, what if we get ahead of it and to say, wow, like, so that's Tigger,
so good.
And it must be really hard to have always been around Tigger. Maria, on the other hand, is the wise owl. And then if we've got somebody, if you were going down poo, you'd say, who do you identify most with? Are you like Kanga? Are you more like Rue? Are you Eeyore? Do you have some of that, like an Enneagram 4? And these are like great country Western, but all that self-loathing is like very difficult to live with. So can you see what a great thing to just celebrate how we are and how we're the same, or how we're a reaction to having been raised by Tigger. Then my daughter then married somebody who's a beautiful reaction to that, a lot more stable and smart and all that. So, and celebrate that. So I would say, as you guys are going through this transition, to take that same leadership you did when they were all young, when you were making all the calls, and still set that up, like curate your family in the 20s and 30s and 40s. And that's our plan.
That's so good.
That's awesome.
I love that.
I love again, it goes back to being intentional, right? And being intentional with your family. And especially when you do have a big family, like there's going to be a lot of different personalities. And so being able to be intentional about understanding how different people work and being able to honor that and help people come alive in the way that God's created you to be, and how to be intentional about the way that we interact so that you can really thrive. That's something that we talk a lot about, just really wanting to be intentional and present and helping our children blossom in the ways that they are. And I do think the Enneagram helps to do that. It helps you to understand who you are, and helps as your kids get older, kind of understanding maybe the way that they are designed as well. So,
it can be a little peg to hang your hat on. Not that it's the end all be all, but to say, oh, wow, there's like different ways. And so God doesn't try to control what he creates. So he isn't controlling me or you robotically to just say, so now do this and do that. But sometimes as parents, we try to control what we create. Particularly if we don't understand. So, child number 3 is doing this bender, like, wow, then you go into control mode for a bunch of good reasons. You want them to, arrive into their 30s with most of their appendages intact. So, but then if you try to control somebody, they have 2 opportunities to respond to that: react, and rebel, or comply. And I'm a little bit more concerned about the comply mode, because at some point they're going to stop complying. And go, like, it happens in big or small ways, but you say, I am done complying. So that idea to just be ahead of it and say, I'm just trying to, I don't want to control you. Yet at the same time, I feel this responsibility. And this is amateur night. I don't know how to be a parent. It's my first time through. It'll be your first time through later. But while you're under our roof, let me just think of some guardrails we'll put up. And we'll just say, if you want to be, and you'll always be part of this team, but if you want to field a position of confidence, then these would be kind of some of the outer edges of the guardrail. My preference is that you wouldn't ricochet off the outer edges of that, but you decide. So you'll just see me a little bit more tense as you're ricocheting off the outer edges.
Yeah.
So having a just authentic conversation to your kids, I just think that would just create such a beautiful thing for them to replicate later.
It's so good, man. It's really good.
Well, you've got 23 things on your whiteboard. What are you most excited about? That's probably the good way to like end out this podcast today. Like, what's getting you really pumped right now?
It's grandkids. Like that is my next thing. If you put this, will it work or will it last? So I've spent a lot of my life, and the assumption has been that dad is gone and on his way back. And I'm trying to change the assumption in my life to the assumption is that I'm here and then about to be on my way. And so I remembered son number 2 called up, and he called up and said, "Hey, how you doing?" He said, "I just figured you were at home." And I was like, yes.
That's so good.
35 years, the assumption was that I'd be elsewhere. They knew I was coming home, but it just like, so just at a real practical level for listeners, you could just say, so what are the assumptions people make about you? Maybe the assumption is that you're on edge because you've just been on edge. You're just wound pretty tight. If you want to change the assumption, I don't know what will work, get a puppy, but like do something. I don't know, maybe they'll make you more on edge. We bought this dog. I'm telling you, it could walk across 3 IKEA carpets just to take a dump on a Persian rug. Like, this will do. So, but find a way to change the assumptions people are making about you. If they can make assumptions about your faith, they can make assumptions about fun or family or finances or whatever. But if you want to change those up, you need to identify, who is it that I'm turning into? Who do I want to be? And I just want to be a grandpa. That's my like big aspiration. That's why I write books.
I love it.
Because someday I'm going to end up in a jar. I hope that's a while from now, but I want something to lean up against it. The dude in the jar, this is what he thought about everything.
Your cremation jar is just a bookend.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
I love it.
So, but to be really intentional and winsome, we geocache stuff for our kids everywhere. I hope they're not listening. But they don't know. It's like stapled to our will, all the latitude and longitude of things we do around the world. And I don't tell them what to do. I remind them of who they are. And so, man, your listeners are one pickle jar away from bearing something that'd be really beautiful. We got more than dead pets buried in our backyard. I want my kids to know who I think they're becoming.
That's awesome.
To see, this is what I saw. And that kind of intentionality is very winsome. You know, it'll pass the test of time. And I think that's how you guys demonstrate that in your family. So keep it up. I'm cheering for you. I'm learning a lot from you guys. I got your book. I read it cover. I learned so many new things. I'm like, that's a good book.
Thank you.
Really thoughtful, thought-provoking. It was good.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It really does mean. And you're going to be in Nashville in a couple weeks, right?
Evidently.
So maybe I'll get to take you for that coffee that I totally flaked on when you were in town last time.
Awesome. Let's do it.
That would be awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, Bob. And we're going to put all the links to all your stuff, which is considerable, in the show notes so people can connect with you online and all that kind of stuff like that. Make sure you do that, guys. And we love you, dude. So
thank you so much.
Love you guys, and keep up the good work. You're killing it.
Yeah. And guys, if you are watching this and have not already subscribed to the What's Up Beautiful People podcast, we'd love for you to do that. You can do that here on the Family Made Network YouTube page. You can do it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. We'd love for you to do that. We're back here next week with a self-professed Eeyore, Enneagram 4. Scott Sauls will be on next week, so you're going to not want to miss that either. But when you said Eeyore, he's got a new book too. And he talks about being the Eeyore. He's awesome. I love it. So
he's deep, but for a guy that has he's in touch with how he's feeling, and but boy, the depth that guy. Wow, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he is.
Give him a high five for me.
Will do, man. We love you guys. See you next week.